Let's get some voices then on this latest development. Donald Trump says he will urge Vladimir Putin to agree to a 30-day ceasefire after Ukraine backed his plan to pause the war. The proposal would stop missile, drone and bomb attacks, end fighting in the Black Sea and bring calm along the entire front line. Trump is expected to call Putin this week, saying it takes two to tango. That's the quotation that is out there at the moment. Let's hear the US president's reaction.
Ukraine, ceasefire, just agreed to a little while ago. Now we have to go to Russia and hopefully President Putin will agree to that also, and we can get this show on the road. We can get this horrible war where 2,000-3,000 soldiers a week, every week, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 sometimes. I get the reports. And they're not American soldiers, they're Ukrainian and they're Russian. But people are being killed outside of that. People are being killed in the cities as things explode throughout the cities. And we want to get that war over with. Ukraine has agreed to it, and hopefully Russia will agree to it. We're going to meet with them later on today and tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be able to wipe out a deal. But I think the ceasefire is very important. If we can get Russia to do it, that'll be great. If we can't, we just keep going on and people are going to get killed, lots of people.
Well, he's certainly right on that point. In a moment, we'll speak to Igor Novikov, former advisor to President Zelensky, and Greg Swenson, chairman of Republicans Overseas UK. But first, Sergei Markov, former spokesperson for Vladimir Putin, is with us. Sergei, good afternoon to you, sir. The big question, of course, is will your man agree to this deal? What are your thoughts?
I think that Vladimir Putin will be happy to agree about peace deal, but maybe he is less enthusiastic about ceasefire, because he already used ceasefire with another side from our point of view, not Ukraine, but Ukraine and Western coalition, Western countries. And it was Minsk 1 agreement and Minsk 2 agreement. All of them have been quite sharply violated by Western and Ukrainian side, and this period has been used for the total militarization of Ukrainian society, total weaponization of Ukrainian army, and total de-Russification and Nazification of Ukrainian political regime. So now we have absolutely no trust to the Western countries because they sharply violated all agreements. And that's why a lot of people here ask, okay, we will have ceasefire, but what will be the result? Western country will give enormous number of arms to the Ukrainian army, and Zelensky will make a total mobilization of young people, and they will start this war again in half of a year or in 1 year. So as a result, we will have much more intensive war. So that's why Russia is against just simple ceasefire. But it will be a weaponry embargo, for example. Okay. Probably Russia will be more ready to accept.
All right. So your fear is that this won't work in the long term. Many commentators, Sergei, would say this is the problem that they have with Russia, that there'll be a ceasefire, there'll be some kind of peace, and give it 1 or 2 years, Mr. Putin will re-invade. It was, after all, your country that invaded a sovereign country.
It's a reasonable question, and the answer is very simple. Ukraine should be back from a neo-Nazi terroristic regime, which is now from 2014, to the democratic system, which Ukraine had from 1991 to 2014. You may know that during this period, Ukraine has absolutely zero security problem with Russia. So democracy to Ukraine is solution for this crisis. If Russian language will be not prohibited, if Orthodox Church will be not prohibited, if thousands of political prisoners will be liberated from the prisons, if neo-Nazi groups will be disarmed and closed, Ukraine will have any problems with security. Actually, Ukraine had no problems with security from 1991 about 2014. It's the fact.
And there it is. Well, listen, Sergei, thank you for your time, sir. Sergei Markov, former spokesperson for Vladimir Putin. Let's put some of that to Igor Novikov, former advisor to President Zelensky. Igor, good afternoon to you. You heard much of what Mr. Markov said there. His contention, I can see you shaking your head, is the problem with this is that Ukraine will just restart the war again. I was slightly surprised by that assertion. What's your reaction?
Well, first of all, it's Igor, not Igor.
I apologize, Igor. I apologize. I was never good at Ukrainian at school, so there you go.
No, it's all right. But like, look, I find myself in this awkward position of having to comment on something that ridiculous. I mean, first of all, we're neo-Nazis. I mean, obviously, I'm a Nazi then. You know, my daughter is Jewish, which is interesting how that works. If we have a ceasefire, definitely, you know, we're going to arm Ukrainians and take Moscow, most likely. And we didn't have any problems with Russia prior to 2014. One of the reasons being because Putin just put off the elections, and we had a president who ran to Putin, to Moscow, who fled to Moscow. Yeah. So it's all ridiculous. And bottom line is, like, look, I'm not interested in what Russia has to say here in terms of the reasoning, the perverted logic. In fact, I don't even want to see them squirm. What's important here is that Ukraine has made that step towards ceasefire and towards peace. Well, it's not an easy relationship with the White House, with the current administration, but I think we've been off to a rocky start, but we managed to find that common ground. We managed to find that mutual respect. We managed to find, you know, a number of deals to put in place. And as President Trump has correctly said, the ball is in Russia's court. Now, Russia is really interesting in its logic, but it's the actions that matter. And I can tell you one thing, why I'm skeptical on Russia. President Trump, it's his negotiation tactic. I disagree with it, but he's done it. He stopped all the intelligence sharing and the military aid up until the negotiations in Saudi Arabia. Now, during that time, the so-called threat from Ukraine for Russia has been even lower. And that didn't stop Russia from carrying out a major missile attack during that time against our gas infrastructure, natural gas infrastructure, and against peaceful cities. So if you look at the actions, you know, there's room for skepticism. But on the other hand, I believe in, you know, Donald Trump's resolve to solve this. So it's a win-win at the moment for Ukraine, thank God. And, you know, if it works out, we're closer to peace. If it doesn't work out, now President Trump needs to show that, you know, he's been fair all along. Okay. He can do what he's done to Ukraine.
When you heard, Igor, Mr. Markov's assertion that he can't trust, or Russia can't trust Western countries, they'll keep rearming Zelensky, etc. Do you think they are the views and the opinions of Mr. Putin? I mean, he's Mr. Putin's former spokesman, but do you sense that that's exactly what the Kremlin will still be thinking today?
I don't think that's what Kremlin will be thinking. I mean, I separate propaganda from, you know, the actual train of thought there. I think what Putin is thinking is, how can I get the whole of Ukraine? Because the situation is as favorable as it will ever get for him. Now, so I think that's the train of thought. I don't think he's afraid that Ukraine will take Moscow, Vladivostok, or Kaliningrad. I don't think he's worried about NATO because, you know, there was no trouble with Sweden and Finland joining. And they're actually more of a threat to Russia than Ukraine is, for a number of reasons. But I think for Putin, he's still after the whole of Ukraine. He's still after being, you know, the Grand Duda of the global order. And I think, you know, he's going to try and squirm his way out of this situation, try and avoid this ceasefire, try and win a better position, and then see if he can get Trump to betray Ukraine. Yep. Having said that, given what happened yesterday in Saudi Arabia, I'm slightly more optimistic than I was.
Listen, we appreciate your time. Great to have you with us, Igor Novikov, former advisor to President Zelensky.